Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, hashtag ODPH podcast. I'm your host, Ken M. Sitting across me this week is the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello.
Joining us in studio, you know him from the ODPH Comics blog, it's Bry Guy Signal.
What up, guys?
And we have a special guest joining us in studio, it's Paff Daddy himself. Mike Pathy has returned to the show. Mike, what's going on?
Not too much. Thank you guys so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. We got to get right into the subject matter. It's been a big weekend in movie, TV, and comics, but nothing has been going on bigger than Endgame of Thrones. Game of Thrones had one of their biggest episodes of the season, of the series thus far.
Let's say biggest in terms of ratings. If I saw the viewers right, it was like something like 17.8 million viewers.
It was their highest viewing.
Now, obviously, that's probably going to be a little higher because that doesn't factor like multiple people watching the same screen.
Yep.
I'll say there's 3 people in our place alone watching it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There were parties going on. It was just a event to be had. If you missed the episode, we are going to be talking spoilers. If you're not into Game of Thrones, Pad,
We're going to have the timestamp in the description of the episode for where you can jump to.
let's waste no more time. Let's jump right into it. 3, 2, 1. What did you think of the episode?
Absolutely loved it, just from everything, including you get to the end where what the heck is going to happen now?
Absolutely. Bri, what you think of the episode?
I thought it was great. A little unsure about the ending, but we'll get to that later. But overall, it's like I just had a blast with the whole thing.
Yeah, definitely a really amazing episode. They put so much time and effort into it, and it really shows.
The Battle of Winterfell was the big payoff that we've been waiting for Thrones fans for so long now. The threat of the Night King has finally arrived at Winterfell. Jon Snow has rallied anybody and everybody he can to fend off the threat of the undead.
Well, anybody who's willing to listen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But he has rallied his army together. They're ready to fend off the attack. The attack has come right to the front door. And right from the get-go, you definitely get the sense and the feel of how serious this event is.
Mm-hmm.
They go right from the Dothraki army, who gets their swords lit on fire by Melisandre, which is kind of really telling considering where her story arc has gone.
I think it just kind of shows the gravity of the situation where she's like, all right, listen, I know you got a lot of folks here, but you need my help.
Yeah.
And then she obviously gets them ready to go. They go charging into the darkness. You see Jon and Daenerys on a hilltop watching overhead, waiting for their move to go. Bran is hidden, and he's the one who is drawing out the Night King to finally make his appearance on the field. And everybody else is in their perfect position, so to speak. And once the Dothraki go running into the darkness, what happens?
Bum, 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 bum.
Silence.
Silence. And then they come running back.
Yeah,
Some of them do.
Well, yeah.
Like there's a 10 of them.
Yeah, no, it's a very impressive charge. It runs into the darkness, and then it just kind of stops, and then it kind of extinguishes itself, and then the forces left at the gates of Winterfell are like, wait, what happened? And then you start seeing horses come back without riders come back without horses, and then Ser Jorah comes running back, and the look on his face just screams, yo, we're screwed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then they go from dealing with, okay, we have an idea what we're going to do, to we have to completely rip up the game plan and go on the defense, which they were not ready to do at that moment.
No.
And it was one of those situations where they had to just adapt on the fly.
Yeah.
Now, whether it was the right case or wrong case, they did have a little play to adapt, and they were just retreating, drawing the Night King's army out, which you just kind of see through the darkness. All of a sudden, this undead army just running towards you at the screen.
Well, see, I think the thing that worked in their favor, though, is because they had to adapt, they had the right people there. Because you think of some of the people that were there, Brienne, Jaime, Ser Jorah, Davos.
Grey Worm,
and everybody else that was just there. Like, those are some of the best military minds in Westeros. If there's somebody you want there that can, like, adapt on the fly and get you going where you need to go, they're the ones.
Literally, the only other person who would have made it better is Tywin Lannister if you really wanted your army to survive. But he's kind of dead, and good riddance to him. But it's just, you're watching everyone like just try to fight this army, and it's like, it's not a conventional army. Despite all their training they have and their strategy, in the end, they don't know how to fight. They've never fought something like this before, and it shows, especially like you said, when Jorah comes back. Someone who's fought the dead before comes riding back with this. He's bleeding on his face, and he's just like, oh no, this isn't good.
Like, you think of the number of years collectively they have battle experience. It's got to be a lot. It's got to be over 1,000 years of combined battle experience and everything they fought. Nothing is like what they're facing now.
Right. They're kind of just going into this flying blind because everything that they've strategized for is not working.
No.
And obviously when the Night King is slowly making his charge forward, his troops are definitely running towards the castle. But then he summons a blizzard storm because he knows Daenerys and Jon have dragons, and he's trying to take them out of the equation really quick because that's their strongest weapon at this point.
Definitely.
Yeah, you even see it like the first time they attack, like, okay, their lines are getting overrun, so the dragons like do a strafing run to give like everyone a buffer room. Like, hey, okay, there's this wall of flames, deal with what you got there.
Yeah.
And then once they go from there, it comes really showing of what is happening because the lighting and just the cinematography that's going on in this episode, you have that sense of just how bleak the event is.
It's almost like there's almost no light penetrating the sky, so there's almost no hope. Like, we're not going to make this.
And they build up to this. They've always been saying, winter is coming, and this is what winter is.
And there was even the one shot, or the one part, it was later in the episode where the camera's in the crypt, and it's all the people hiding out in the crypt, and they're sitting there, and you don't see the person, but you hear them banging against the door of the crypt. Let us in. Let us in. They're coming. They're killing us. Let us in.
And right at that moment, you really sense of, okay, how the battle is quickly shifted, because I don't think anybody was expecting it to go that south that quickly.
Nope.
But once the Night King is starting to progress forward with his forces, and they take the biggest weapons out, which are the dragons that Jon and Daenerys are flying around with, they do pause right up to the gates because Melisandre, who's out going through her redemption arc, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Something she knows she was kind of born to do.
I'll say in season 7, she said, I have to die in this land. So she's kind of just like, it's not really redemption. She's just more like, all right,
it's like
this is
destiny.
It.
Yeah.
And then she's the one that takes over for where they were originally planning is lighting the trenches up in front of Winterfell that they have the wooden barricades up for. And she is the one who's trying to go down there as quick as she can. But even she's starting to sense doubt.
Yeah, she doubts her own like religion. Like the Lord of Light maybe is not here in that moment until that final just... Oh, that was a great scene. It was intense.
Her Gandalf.
You can see her eyes wandering, looking at everything going around her, and she's freaking out.
Her Gandalf, like, you shall not pass moment by lighting the trenches.
Well, yeah, she's got to light the trenches because the original plan was they were going to signal to Daenerys, hey, now's the time, come on down, light the thing. And they're signaling her like you see airplane get signaled on a tarmac at an airport. But the problem is the storm is so thick and so strong. And they even cut to Daenerys flying through the sky. She can't see a thing. Yeah. And that's when they realize, oh, she can't see us. And Melisandre goes, oh, it's my time.
Yeah, everybody's really stepped up for what they needed to do in this battle because they knew that this is life and death. Literally,
yeah.
There was no going back that they had to defeat the Night King or everything was lost because he wants to create a perfect night that's just everlasting, and then obviously he would grow stronger. So her stepping up and lighting the trench was a really telling moment until you saw the Night King's soldiers just stop, and they're waiting.
Yep.
And then as he was coming through, he decided to signal, okay, I see what your plan is. And he was playing so many levels ahead of them on everything. It was like they were playing checkers. He was playing 5 levels ahead of chess. And he sees this and says, okay, he forces his army to lie down on the fire so they can climb over.
Pile up on top of bodies.
It's almost a cascading effect because the one does it, then another one does it, and then it just goes faster and faster and faster.
Which honestly is like a demoralizing tactic to your enemy. You're just like, you're slowly watching.
Yeah, because you see the first one fall, and your thoughts almost like, wait, what are they doing? And then you see another one go, another one, and then it's just start rapid, like a water coming out of a faucet. You're like, oh wait, crap.
And then they just turn into the flood and just start storming the walls. Because
especially of how the Dothraki army was wiped out at the beginning of the episode, and they come running back, and everybody's screaming, retreat, retreat, retreat.
And the Dothraki are no joke.
No joke.
No. And then once everybody's retreating, they're kind of thinking, okay, well, we lit the trenches up, so we're buying some time. We're going to start turning. This is the big moment that happens. And then just the Night King finds a way to just overrun it.
Well, then you get the Spartan Unsullied, being total badasses and just like, oh,
hold the retreat.
Like they get the instruction to run, to like retreat, but they're like, nah, we got this.
Yeah. And then once they start going from there, the Night King's army just rushes the castle. And then what happens from there?
Everything's just
chaos.
It becomes a mosh pit. Like it's literally every man for himself.
Yeah.
You see like Jaime, Brienne, and Pod, like you get and Tormund, like they're all just like in the courtyard, just like fighting. Their backs are against the wall, and it was just so intense because it's like you see like Jaime go down, and we're like, oh crap, did he just die? And it's like you just see him like barely get up, like someone drags him to his feet, like keep fighting, and that's it. That's all they're doing at that point. It's just like they're just swinging their swords left and right and barely any form because they don't need it.
Yeah,
it's just if something's
just
coming
got
at
link
you, just
spin
kill it.
Yeah, they had to, because at this point the Night King's army is just rushing the castle, and it's overwhelming to the point. Even like when they started going up the walls, it almost kind of felt like the World War Z.
World War Z, just climbing the walls of Jerusalem, just piling up the bodies and climbing up. It was insane, and then falling down over on top of people. It was chaos.
Yeah, it was just absolute, pandemonium. And for our fighters that we know have been established, they were struggling to keep up with this.
Yeah.
And for Jaime Lannister, who's been battle tested and going through this, you even saw the doubt in his face.
Yeah.
That he knew, like, all right, we are really in trouble.
It was the same doubt he had when he watched Daenerys and the Dothraki destroy his massive army that he had fought with for years. It's like they just walked right through us, and he's like now seeing that again, like, we can't stop this.
It's like they're sitting there like, all right, we got a shot at this. There's some pretty good people here, and then you just see him get absolutely steamrolled. It's like, wait a minute, we might not have this.
Yeah, and you're seeing heavy hitters on the show, such as the Hound, who's going through his own panic mode at this point, because he's just starting to feel overwhelmed, and he is just taking such an emotional toll on this.
Yeah, like the Hound, who's got a reputation of like, I will take anyone on no matter how big they are or how big the force is, and I'll do it by myself. You have that guy who's like, up against the wall, not moving, and they're like, wait, what are you doing? He's like, we can't do this.
You got like Beric Dondarrion like, Clegane, get in the fight, and it's like, it's hopeless. And then he
points at Arya.
I was gonna say Beric points at her. He's like, it's hopeless.
Tell her.
That
was awesome.
Yeah,
was awesome.
Arya, who was the MVP of this episode, definitely stood up and was the driving force of the North winning of any point they showed her, because even when you saw Lady Mormont, who had her own stellar moment right before Arya really got going, because when the undead giant from the wildlings came through the door and was wiping away everybody, she's one of the smaller characters on the show and showed no fear
when everyone else is running.
And she's just a child. She just takes it like a man and stays true to the Mormont name. It's done.
Yeah, she just goes.
Here we stand. Although I personally think her cousin outdid her defending Daenerys. That's just my opinion. Jorah, rip man.
Jorah's a boss.
Well, as you saw, the death toll, we were expecting a little more. I mean, I think that was
Maybe one extra main big character would have been a little nice.
Because as you see in this, House Mormont is just completely wiped off.
Yeah, gone.
Yep.
Albeit, though, Lady Mormont definitely stole it, in my opinion. Because anytime that she goes running up and the giant is crushing her, and then what does she do?
Stabs it right in the eye. Takes it down with her.
Takes down the biggest threat, so to speak, that the Night King is bringing
on the ground.
On the ground level.
And then that's like just it, on the ground level. That's what kind of just keeps adding this hopelessness of the scenario. It's like Lady Mormont just gave her life to kill a giant. That bought us. That's like, we think that bought us some time.
No.
Nope. Dragon blasts through the entire wall, and just now you got to deal with 8,000 more people.
Yeah.
And at this point too, the blizzard is going on, so they've neutralized the dragons that Daenerys and Jon have. Like, they're struggling to fly.
So at this point, the forces on the ground are on their own, whereas Jon and Daenerys are in the sky fighting the Night King on his own dragon.
Yeah, because he now is shown up. He is looking for Bran, and he now is saying, okay, this is your best punch. He literally took their best shot and laughed about it.
Yeah, that was kind of the demoralizing moment for me, was after the Night King got knocked off his dragon and his dragon went off to go do other things. Daenerys was there with Dracarys, and she looks at him and goes, Dracarys, and Dracarys unleashes everything he's got, and you're like, oh, this has got to...
Yeah, Drogon.
Oh,
yeah,
whatever.
Dracarys, yeah.
He goes, unleashes everything and just torches them, and you're like, oh, this has got to be it. And the dust clears, and the Night King's like, nice try.
That tickled.
Yeah, because he is just sitting there, just everything that the North is throwing at him, he's just laughing about for the most part. And as you see on the ground level, Brianna Tarth is sitting there, and she's fighting everybody off. And Jaime Lannister, even to where he's now a shell of his former self, is fighting everybody off.
Well, see, even he knows he's not as good a fighter as he was, because I can't remember if it was the first episode or the second one. He went to Brienne. He's like, hey, listen, can you give me some help here?
Yeah, and he obviously needed it, because it was not working in his favor prior to, because he's been demoralized since the last time Daenerys and company decided to pay his army a visit.
Yeah. And then he also hates the fact he was betrayed by his sister. So he's like emotionally conflicted. So that's why he goes to Brienne, who's like someone who does trust him in a place where everybody hates him.
He's going into a moment where he needs to be so absurdly mentally focused on what it is at the task at hand, but he's got so much other stuff going around him that is pulling at his mental ability.
Yeah, he was in a rough spot.
Yeah, he was definitely trying to, handle himself too, because especially at this point, you just see the morale is just dropping. But obviously, Lady Mormont's sacrifices definitely bought some time. But she had a great moment, but like we alluded to a little bit earlier, there was one MVP of this episode.
Arya
Stark, who had her, dare I say, the Wolverine moment. If you've read X-Men comics and you know the story of the Dark Phoenix saga, when Wolverine is basically left for dead by the Hellfire Club and has to fight his way to save the X-Men to come right through the building, when he goes, it's my turn. Arya had her moment like this.
Not today,
yeah. And she just went with her weapon that Gendry made for her and just was annihilating everybody in this room, and it was so silent too. And just to see like where she was going and she just didn't break was really telling, I thought.
Yeah, definitely. It was just like she's going through there, and it's like we said, like Beric Dondarrion's like rallying the Hound by pointing at her, like, look, she doesn't give a crap. And then when he sees she might be in danger, that rallies the Hound to come and save her, even though they find her and she's like already killed like 80 people. And it's just more like, all right, I'm running because I don't have a weapon. I got to get another one so I can fight everybody.
It really shows how far she's come as a character, where you think back to where she was training with the tutor guy towards the middle half or end of season 1. And like, he was really besting the you-know-what out of her. Just everything, to where she goes from there in season 1 to the final part of, the final season 8. And she's holding her own against the worst thing that Westeros has ever seen.
death.
Yeah, she just definitely stood up because, I mean, she wasn't expected to be a fighter.
No.
And now she is arguably the best fighter on the show.
Let's say where a lot of people, excluding her brother and Ned, were like, no, don't worry about this. You're a child. You're a female. Let the adults and the males handle this. She's like, no, I got this.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see just how far her character's come. And like I said, this was her defining episode.
Definitely.
Without question.
Definitely.
Just obviously seeing how she's taken out, the Night King's army inside the castle, and she's running through, and you see just the Hound is now broken down. He's not who he was. Melisandre and her have that weird moment in the interaction of the eye prophecy now comes true.
You have many eyes.
Yes. Which was really interesting. And at the point this happened in the episode, I didn't really piece it together like, okay, this might come into play later here. I just thought it was kind of a throwaway line.
That when she said it to her, that moment, I was just like, all right, she's the one. She is about to take it.
I thought about it, but I would not say, oh yeah, I totally knew. It was just kind of like when she emphasized it's like many eyes, blue eyes, you're kind of like, okay, she's going to go I thought she was like, all right, she's going to go find the White Walkers, but I didn't think she was going to go up and like kill the Night King like that.
I never even considered it just because it was like an hour and 20, hour and a half episode. There's so much else going on that like I heard it, I processed it. Okay, moving on.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing, especially with, how they shot the episode. There was just so many moving parts going on. And you just, like I said, we did not see a lot of Jaime Lannister really fighting. You didn't see a lot of Brianna Tarth fighting. You saw enough, and you saw glimpses of they're sitting there fighting, and it almost looked like they were getting overwhelmed, but somehow they're fending and holding their own. Which I don't know if this was more so they didn't really want to take out a lot of major characters in this one because everybody was expecting it, or just threw a curveball. But I didn't think it took away from the episode. In this.
I think it was more everybody was kind of expecting everyone to die, so let's throw you a curveball, and no, not everybody's going to die.
No, I think that they set it up very nicely that everybody kind of had their moments, even when they were down in the crypts too, and the Night King reanimated everybody who was down there.
That was insane.
Yeah,
you saw the moment with Tyrion and Sansa.
Yeah.
And Melisandre's down there, or not Melisandre, Missandei. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just saw how they're, obviously dealing with what's going on, and just at this point it just seems like all is lost.
The fear level is through the roof because, like I said before, you've got the guy banging on the door, help us, let us in, let us in, let us in. If that's not bad enough and that's not going to scare you enough, let's have dead people start breaking through the tombs.
Yeah. And at this point, you really sense that, okay, Jon Snow is losing, and maybe the Night King is going to fully take over, because the only one who's having any success here is Arya.
Yeah.
Jon's going through a hell of a time. That moment when
Jon is literally fighting the world just to try and get through.
Yeah, because after his dragon is taken out, and he is just left to fight on the ground, and he sees the Night King who's off his dragon, and they have the standoff, and as he's walking towards him, all of a sudden, what does the Night King do?
Just raises his hand slowly.
Reanimates
Disrespect.
everybody.
Which I didn't even consider. Like, it's something that's so simple and so obvious looking back on it. Didn't even consider that, he can take all these dead bodies that are there on the field and just replenish everything you just took out.
Yeah, it was a wild scene to see.
Yeah.
And just to see how Jon is still going forward, because everybody thought this would be the main event fight.
Yeah.
Jon Snow versus the Night King.
Running at the Night King as fast as he can.
Yeah. And
zombies rising between him and the Night King. It was intense.
It definitely was. And then to see where Daenerys goes with Joran there coming to save her, and then how he went out.
Ugh.
That's like what I think appeals to so many people on the show is like just how grounded it was, because like you could tell like Jorah was in that moment, like if like you're giving it your all just to keep focusing on this one thing, and that was for him as Daenerys' Queensguard, is like, keep her safe. I'm getting stabbed, I am not dying, but I'm gonna keep going until she is safe. And then because like literally once you see the army fall, it's like you can just see it, he like relaxes and collapses because he's like, I'm done. It's like I can't do anymore.
Yeah, he's done definitely all he can do in this episode. And he definitely went down defending his queen. And there was no shame in that. And you see Jon Snow is desperately trying to make his way from outside Winterfell, inside Winterfell, and he's getting pinned down with dragon fire.
Yeah.
He was like ready to do his triumphant last
Yeah,
stand,
he
like,
stood right up
screaming
at it,
the
right in
dragon.
front of its face, and was just like, it's you and me.
Although I would have liked it if he had his Valyrian sword and went all Dragonborn Skyrim style and like took it out.
And by this time, you see the Night King is now progressing towards Bran.
And Theon.
Who had his redemption moment, even though rushing the Night King with his spear at this point, maybe not the best move in my
Mistakes
opinion.
were made.
You know,
I still disagree with you.
I
on
like
this.
it. I like it.
He's out of arrows. He's gonna die anyways. It's like, what's he supposed to just lie there and take it?
I think
Throw it.
I think it goes back to honor and kind of how honor for everyone in this world is a big thing, and it's more honorable looking back for people who know. And Bran was there and saw the whole thing. For them to go, okay, listen, he didn't die just cowering in a corner while somebody stabbed him or they just shot him with an arrow while he was running away. No, he charged the Night King.
Well, he ran away the whole series, and this is his one moment where he's like, I'm not running from this. No.
And it was very interesting because he's had one of the biggest redemption arcs.
Definitely.
Yes.
This made him amazing.
Yeah, this was probably the most impactful death of the characters we saw killed off this episode.
Him or Jorah. In my
him and Jorah were up there. I mean, obviously Lady Mormont, who definitely fought just like a sheer warrior.
I love Ed too. But.
Yeah, and then obviously with Melisandre, who just disappears like the Thanos snap at the end.
In the wind.
And just going in with this is, okay, Theon is definitely trying to stop the Night King. He's trying to desperately buy time for Jon. It doesn't happen. And then who comes flying in to save the day?
Bam! Arya Stark.
Yes. Arya goes trying to jump at the Night King to take him out, and he turns around and catches her in midair.
Well, there's a cool little moment where they kind of tease someone's there because one of his generals, I'll call him. I don't know what they're actually called, but it's one of his generals. It's one of the 4 or 5 guys that like always get shown standing next to him. They're standing there while he's slowly getting ready to reach for his sword, and one of his generals' hair actually whips by him, and the guy looks by his side like, what? And then just out of the darkness, you see Arya leaping in the air.
It was just one of the cool
So
moments
epic.
that happened.
Yeah, and that's where. I don't know. It's like, this is where I have mixed feelings about that ending. Like, it was awesome that she did that, but it's just like, okay, that was 8 seasons of build-up just done like that. And that's where I'm like, I don't hate it, but I don't love it either. I'm just sort of like, I just felt weird sitting there watching the whole army die, and it's like, that's it?
I feel like this is one of the situations where, okay, we know how the battle ends, but this isn't the end of the battle. The fighting is stopped, but the battle I don't think is over. Where we got to kind of go into next episode and really see, all right, what was done? How many people are left? Like, because where the episode ends is it's still kind of dark and still kind of gloomy, and you really can't see anything. I think once we get to the next episode, you can kind of get the general's assessment of, all right, where are we at? Give me an account.
And that's where I'm at, because like in the preview, you can see like some Unsullied walking through the courtyard, like, and Daenerys is like, now we fight the final battle, and it's like, and I guess that's also what adds up to is like, okay, we don't know how many people died, and also it's just kind of like, all right, the Night King's defeated, but it's like, all right, we're not done.
Well, somebody's going to probably say that, because I imagine they're down a fair number of forces, and Daenerys is going to go, and now we fight the final battle, and somebody's going to go, with what?
Yeah.
Well, especially with how Arya took out the Night King too, which we didn't really even touch upon too, is that as she's getting choked, what does she do?
She jumps up. She goes to stab him right in his icy face. He grabs her arm, starts choking her, I believe.
Yep.
And then she does the move, drops the knife, grabs it with her right hand, stabs him right in the gut. Bam!
The exact same move she tried when she was fighting Brienne, who was testing her skills, and Brienne caught it. Night King didn't.
Didn't
Funny
see it
thing
coming.
about her is like, she's not right-handed. To make a Princess Bride reference, because like Syrio in the first season, it's like, oh, you're left-handed, good. It throws everyone off, and it's like, nope, I know how to use both.
And I think the other awesome thing was that was also the blade that was should have been used on Bran.
Yeah.
The dagger.
Yeah,
the Valyrian steel dagger.
And it's just one of the cool factors, too, because once this happens, and it kind of alluded to what Brian was saying, too, about how anticlimactic was, the Night King is just, wiping away everybody. He really didn't see anything of his powers, per se, other than conjuring the weather and raising the dead. So when he gets there and you're expecting the big fight with Jon Snow, no, Arya takes him out.
Yeah.
Does it so cleverly to throw back to when Brienne of Tarth was sparring with her.
Right.
And then just all of a sudden, he goes away, and just all of a sudden, everybody just starts fading away.
Well, and everyone was expecting the Night King to face off with Jon, and Jon versus the Night King to be the final battle. But I think that kind of goes back to, what we said before. They're playing checkers while the Night King is playing chess. The Night King has faced Jon twice.
Yeah.
Had a stare down with the man twice. He's planning for the man. He knows what to do. He knows what he has. Hasn't seen Arya.
Definitely not.
And it kind of also adds to all right, it makes it a little more realistic from the standpoint. It's like, all right, we know who the leaders are. It's like, in real life, it's like the leaders don't always face off like that. So it just sort of added that
She's like a secret weapon.
It's like added that realism. It's like, oh yeah, he was expecting to be killed by Jon, but nope, she does it.
Ace in the hole.
And it just goes to show how well she is now fully developed into the fiercest fighter of all Westeros.
Definitely.
And it's going to help, obviously, moving forward, because now they have to pick up the pieces of the Long Night and deal with the last war that's coming with Cersei.
Well, the last war that was kind of put on pause.
Yes, for now. But before we close out the segment, final thoughts on the episode.
I liked it. I mean, I know I said I felt weird about the ending, but it's like, well, that might get changed based on the next episode. And overall, it's like I just love the everything before it. So just to hate the entire episode based on one moment I feel a little unsure about is kind of unfair.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I thought the choreography of the fight was insane. It was groundbreaking. The feeling, the emotion, and I mean, Arya's my favorite character, so I was screaming at the top of my lungs when that happened. I'm like, that's my girl. But yeah, it was great.
I absolutely love the episode. For a majority of it, I had very little hope that they were going to make it through. That I didn't think they were going to make it. They were going to die. And it wasn't really until Arya stabbed the Night King that I could kind of finally breathe and go, all right, they're good.
Yeah, this episode definitely lived up to the hype. The Battle of Winterfell has been teased for so long. And then we finally get to it. It was the longest episode of the season, 80 minutes. And granted, the only complaint I've really been hearing about is how it was shot. It's supposed to be in a dark, cold place.
It's winter.
It's not supposed to be well lit.
They had almost no hope.
They could barely see.
Exactly. And the lighting reflected it. The choreography for the fight scenes were amazing. And just such little throwbacks, like we said with Arya's sparring session with Brienne, was what took out the Night King.
Yeah.
And I just got to say this. Shout out to the cast and crew, because the filming this whole episode took 55 nights, which is no small feat.
Right.
And in negative weather.
Yeah, it's just one of the sheer factors what really hooks people on Game of Thrones. It's the most realistic fantasy show there is, because you can just tell by how they act and just the scenes and the direction and the style. It's just something that gravitates towards fans that you hear about these books, and granted, it's fantasy books.
Right.
But to see this actually come to life and how much attention to detail they put into it, it's truly, truly telling.
Yeah.
It's something definitely to watch. We're excited for it. Mike, I know you have to go, but why don't you give a little shout out to the listeners? What have you been up to? What's going on?
Well, I've been rocking out with my band Honker here. We got a couple shows coming up. I can't think of them right now on the spot, unfortunately. I think...
Well, if our listeners want to find out, we can actually go to the ODPH webpage. We have Honker now listed under our 607 Music on the page, so definitely go check it out, as well as the other bands you hear on the podcast.
Definitely.
Mike,
any local music. Support it. Go out and see it. Music is the best.
Absolutely. Mike, thank you for coming on the episode. We appreciate you giving us some time.
Thank you guys so much for having me. You guys rock.
Absolutely. Listeners, hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What was your thoughts on the Battle of Winterfell? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Hot lips touching, cool thighs feeling, shudder running up, her spine spinning, long day to a long night, but I'm not stopping till I get it right.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we talk Game of Thrones, but that was not the biggest event of the weekend. It's debatable.
Yeah.
It's really debatable.
I mean, if we're talking dollars.
If we're talking dollars, there's one king of the North, of the South, of the East, of the West.
Of the universe.
Break it down for us, Pat.
Holy cow, Avengers Endgame premiered last week, and of course we knew it was going to do big numbers, monster numbers. I didn't expect these numbers. My God. So, as everyone has probably seen by now, Avengers Endgame over the weekend decimated box office records left, right, and center, amassing a $1.2 billion global debut. Now, it broke domestically, it broke the Force Awakens record. I forget the exact dollar amount. It broke that opening weekend record. Overseas, it broke the record for what overseas opening weekend. The previous record holder had been The Fate of the Furious with a $443 million opening weekend, just over that. Avengers Endgame overseas opened with an $866,526,407 opening weekend.
I guess that's a lot, huh?
It's a little bit.
Well, I mean, it's a lot because the movie was that good, and after 11 years actually, because 10 years was last year since the MCU started, it's just it's not shocking.
No, it definitely isn't. We are going to be talking spoilers.
Yes.
I repeat, we are going to be talking spoilers. So if you haven't been able to see the movie yet, we're giving you fair warning right now.
Wait, are we talking spoilers?
Oh, we are talking spoilers.
Oh, okay.
So get ready in 3, 2, 1. Pat, what you think of the film?
I absolutely love the film. We'll get into it a little bit later, but the movie now contains one of my favorite scenes in cinema history. Might be my number one favorite scene in cinema history.
Bry guy?
It was good. I don't know how else to say it. It was easily one of my favorite Marvel movies. Maybe not my favorite, but that's not because it was bad. It was just like, I don't know, it's just weird. After you watch it, I think if you haven't seen it, or if you have, you might understand what I'm talking about. It's like it just fits in its own category of Endgame. Like it's just because everything built up to this one. Mm-hmm. So you're just like, you watch it and you're like, all right, that was the ending.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been the build-up for, like Brad Guy alluded to, 11 years of Marvel cinematic history.
22 films.
Yeah.
22 films, and after last year's Infinity War, which was so good of trying to bring the Infinity Gauntlet saga to the screen.
It was finally the payoff of everything that had been like Easter eggs and blink and you miss it stuff to, hey, that all mattered.
We finally get to the resolution of the snap.
Yes.
And how the heroes are dealing with this.
Not well.
Not well at all. I mean, we start out and Cap and company are really kind of trying to piece everything together and go on. We see Tony Stark is in space, which he was left hanging from the battle on Titan.
Well, he was kind of left hanging, but like at the same time, the Guardian ship was still there, and he made off with Nebula, and well, things didn't go well.
I just want to say they did a great job. I don't know if it was makeup or if Robert Downey Jr. did method acting. Tony looked like, okay, we are barely surviving here. Like, he looked terrible when he got off that ship. Like, he was so skinny and it was bad.
Yeah.
Not to mention also the movie, like you said, all right, it shows off not everyone's in a good spot. The movie actually opens with Hawkeye watching his kids and his wife get dusted.
I mean, I realized I said in a previous episode that I thought that was going to happen. I didn't expect it to be the opening of the movie.
Right.
I thought it was going to be like a flashback. And it's like, where have you been? And it's like you see a flashback of his family vanishing.
Yeah.
But it's like, nope, we're opening up with this.
Yeah.
It's almost like a tongue-in-cheek, oh, you guys wanted to know where Hawkeye was for the entire movie. Well, we're going to tell you in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a really interesting play on it because, like, it's I don't want to say it's a throwaway scene because you know everybody gets snapped.
Yeah.
But it almost was because you're like, oh, okay, so this is what he's been doing. And then when they go right to Tony and Nebula on the spaceship, and then Tony is making his like final plea, he's talking to the helmet, he's hoping the recordings are getting the pepper.
After playing paper football with Nebula, and probably one of the funnier scenes I think I've seen.
One of the funniest scenes that they've done. And you know what, like I've been very critical about Disney humor in the MCU. This made sense.
Yes.
This definitely felt very organic with it. And to see that Tony has now made his final plea, and who shows up to save the day?
Captain Marvel.
Yes, Brie Larson shows up as Carol Danvers and finds Tony in space. So they kind of left it hanging from where the end scene was at the end of Captain Marvel, where she finally shows up to Avengers Mansion, or Avengers Complex, rather.
Yeah.
So at this point, it's just assumed that she's getting the details and sees, okay, Tony's in space. She goes looking.
Right.
So it's kind of not really well explained, but explained enough that they can get right into it. And as she brings him back to Earth, they all start recapping of what has happened on both sides from the battle with Thanos.
And I got to say, I was fully expecting, Rocket to find out nobody was left. I wasn't expecting it to be as brutal as it was, where nothing need be said. He just saw Nebula walk off the ship. He didn't see anybody else walk off the ship, and that was enough for him.
And you just see him sitting next to her, like, defeated.
That was heartbreaking.
Yeah, it definitely hits some emotions, too, because Rocket's always the one with the one-liners.
Yeah.
He's always the one that just can't stop talking, and just to see him quiet like that.
And he usually buries his emotion with humor, so, like, when you just see him, like, just broken, it's like, dude.
And as much as he might poke fun of or make fun of or say he hates the other Guardians, at the end of the day, he does have feelings for them. They are his family.
Right. It's just how he's portrayed. And that's just, it's just kudos to how Bradley Cooper does it.
Yes.
Because, essentially him and Vin Diesel are just voice actors in this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vin Diesel just saying the same 3 words in about 8 different languages.
Right, but he finds a way to pull it off. And, and Bradley Cooper just was so good as Rocket, too, that he just doesn't even say anything in this moment. And you can tell the ramifications of the devastation are just now sinking in. Mm-hmm. And as they're going through, kind of figuring out where to go play next, because Captain Marvel's like, okay, I've arrived. Where's Thanos? I'm going to go kill him.
Yeah, because reasons.
Yeah, just reasons. And this was arguably the only point of the movie I don't know, for whatever reason, it just didn't click in. Because Nebula's like, oh, yeah, here's where he'd be, after everybody's kind of looking, and just Rocket's like, oh, yeah, he's there.
Well, because Nebula said in the movie, having lived with the man for practically probably her entire life, if not just her adult life, he talked about this a lot. He harped about this a lot. It's probably to the point where you've probably had parents or family members harp on something or mention something ad nauseum where you're like, all right, good grief, I get it. To where she knows his plan. All right, hey, listen, he's got this plan. He's going to do what he can, and this is where he's going to go.
Right, which I understand her point because she's been away from the ship, but just how like Rocket was like, oh yeah, he's here.
Well, yeah, because they're in the dark, because to their knowledge, before Nebula and Tony show up, he came, wrecked house, ate their cookies and left, and they have no idea where he left, because the little contained world they had at the start of this cinematic universe is blown out the window because it's a wide open playground.
And there's even that joke as they go to face Thanos. All right, who hasn't been to space? Half the Avengers raise their hand.
Yeah.
Right. So once they take off into space and actually track him down, which he is definitely not in the same position he was in Infinity War.
No.
Break it down for us, bro.
But the thing is, it's like he's not in the same position. It's by choice.
Yes.
He's literally like, okay, I wiped out half the life in the universe, put balance in it. All right, I'm done. I'm going to sit on my porch and I'm going to have a farm.
Yeah.
He's content with it. He's not like, oh, I'm defeated. I have nothing to live for. He's like, no, this was the plan.
I had one thing to do. I had one item on my grocery list, and I got it.
Yeah, and you see him, too. He's now scarred.
Yeah.
From destroying the Infinity Gems.
Well, yeah, because the Avengers show up, and they get into low orbit, and Captain Marvel, hops off the plane and goes, I'm going to go down and recon the place, because she's a fighter. She's a soldier. That's what you do. Mm-hmm. And she comes back in relatively quick time, and she goes, yo, there's nothing there. And they finally track him down, and they get to the farm, and that's when you see him sitting in his hut, and like it just scarred, broken, and they immediately do a better job than they did in the first movie with half the amount of forces, and they pin him down.
Which I just gotta say, the fact he is retired, to use a lack of a better word, you kind of feel bad for the guy because it's like you just smash his house and it's like, oh man, he literally is like, I'm just a farmer now, and it's like, oh my god.
He wiped out half the universe. I have no love.
He wiped out half the universe, and one person has been waiting all this time, especially out of everybody else, to right his wrong.
And he's been real silent except for like one line.
Yep, and that is Thor, who does not even really wait.
No.
Goes for the head finally.
Well, no, he waits. He waits long enough to find out where the Infinity Stones are. And, of course, Thanos used the Infinity Stones to destroy themselves, which triggered the effect of how Rocket was able to track him down to where he was and why he's scarred. And once Thor finds out, oh, there are no Infinity Stones, well, there's no reason to keep you alive.
Yeah, and just cuts his head off.
Yeah, cold blood.
Clean shot.
Yeah.
And at this point now, everybody kind of has to accept what's going on.
Well, and there was the line, I forget who it was. Somebody goes, why did you do that? And he just goes, I went for the head.
Yeah.
And he says it in I give credit to Chris Hemsworth. He says it like trying to be confident, but you can tell he's just more like saying it like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
This is a man dealing with some stuff that like took on the full brutal force of a star to forge a weapon to take out Thanos. And he had his shot. He had his opportunity. And he missed it.
Yeah, he's now dealing with the guilt of letting Thanos win.
I was like, because if I remember right from the movie, it's been 3 weeks when they had reached the planet. It's been 3 weeks since Thanos, snapped half of all life away. So you got to figure Thor's been sitting with this for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3 weeks. That would eat up anybody.
And this is the first time he's really failed.
Yes,
like that's the one thing that we really haven't talked about is Thor. I mean, granted, he's gone through his moments where he's been unworthy.
Right.
But not a complete fail.
Right.
To this level.
He semi-failed when they lost Asgard, but at the same token, yeah, okay, you lost Asgard, but your people are still there. No, he didn't just lose. He lost everything.
I mean, he lost half the universe. I mean, he's dealing with the guilt of that. Captain America is dealing with the guilt of it. Tony Stark at this point is just recuperating from space. So he doesn't really have anything to process because he's, obviously...
He's still being his angry self.
Right. And obviously, those three have the most writing on this because they're the ones that are taking most of the blame.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of interesting. So then what happens after that, Bri?
It jumps forward 5 years, and everyone's trying to move on the best they can.
And the thing I love with that was they went to jump forward 5 years, and they put up the title card, and it wasn't just, 5 years later. It was like 5 years later.
Which I loved.
Yeah.
Because they needed to explain that.
Because the thing when we saw it in our theater was there was a collective... Like, nobody could believe it.
And at this point, things have definitely changed.
Yeah, Tony's got a family. He's given up avenging. We got Steve, who's trying to help people move on.
Yeah.
And, oh boy, Thor.
You mean the Thorbowski?
You mean the dude.
The dude.
The dude.
I had a friend who saw it, and her immediate thoughts, like when I asked her what she thought of the movie, she was like, I was devastated by Thor being fat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because at this point, he has let himself go. He is not dealing with this.
Well, and let's not forget...
He's playing Fortnite, for God's sake.
This is true. He's playing... Well, Korg's playing Fortnite, and Thor is trash-talking kids on the internet. No, let's not forget Natasha, though. Natasha is handling the devastation by putting her notes to the grindstone and taking no days off.
Right. And there was a council meeting, so to speak, of certain MCU heroes.
So it's almost the, defunct, whatever you want to call it, World Security Council.
Right. That is kind of going over events and just there's nothing going on and nothing happening. Except there was a comment made.
We'll say the council was made up of, who was it? Rocket, Nebula, Okoye from Wakanda, and then War Machine.
Right.
And Captain Marvel.
Yes.
And Okoye definitely made a comment about how earthquakes were happening undersea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I took this as an Easter egg that they are actually referring to Namor.
I get the same feeling because the snap took out half of all life. It didn't take out half of the mass of the Earth, which would totally screw with the tectonic plates.
Right. So I'm guessing that they have now placed the Easter egg for Namor, which I will be very interested to see if he actually does show up in the next couple phases. Because he's always had kind of this weird...
Yeah. Who has the rights has never been firmly established. Like, people have outright asked Kevin Feige and other people at Marvel and Disney. No one's ever given a firm answer, so maybe we'll finally get an answer.
And during this point, too, War Machine kind of gives a heads up to Natasha of what Hawkeye's been up to.
Yeah.
Yeah, he, whereas Thor went into the depression and got fat, Hawkeye just went dark.
Yeah.
He's just hunting down criminals. Happy. And when I say hunting down, he's not like, oh yeah, I'm arresting them. No, I have a sword. I'm cutting people down in the streets of Japan, Mexico, and all over the world because he's just so broken with the fact his family's gone, good people, and yet you got like the Yakuza and drug cartel men still running the show, and he's like, why are you here and they're not?
He's out of the whole entire like original 6 Avengers, he's handling this the worst of them all.
Right, because he is.
Because although I think he's like on par with Thor. Thor's in denial.
Yeah.
Like you can see like as soon as they mention Thanos, like he breaks, he gets mad. He's like, we don't say that name here. And Korg's like, oh yeah, man, we don't really say that name here.
No, right, but Thor could have also gone the Hawkeye route and just started conquering planets for the sheer hell of it because he's so pissed off.
Right. I mean, you see each character going through a different phase of grief.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see that play out too, because not everybody is handling this well. I mean, Steve is trying to cope with everybody in a group, and Tony has definitely moved on with his life.
Tony's like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, he's kind of accepted what's happened.
He's like, you know what? I actually made good out of all this.
Yes. And during this time, too, we run into an old friend, thanks to a rat.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we see in San Francisco, a rat winds up walking across some equipment that's in a junkyard of a van.
Yeah, where the fence on said junkyard is labeled, I'm blanking on the name,
Lang.
Lang. Yeah, that rat's the real MVP.
Yes, because he winds up being the one to free Scott Lang from the quantum realm.
Yeah.
And now he's coming in and going, what has happened?
Yeah.
I've been gone, what do you say, a couple hours?
He was gone 5 hours, and it was 5 years real time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So now he's coming back to find out what's happened. He goes to check on his daughter, who's now grown up.
Well, before he goes to check on his daughter, who's grown up, there's a scene where you see in the trailer where he goes up to the light pole and he sees all the kind of worn out missing persons posters, and he sees a kid riding his bike and riding down the street, and he asks the kid, "Hey, where is everybody?" And the kid almost doesn't say anything to him, and he looks at him almost like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah. It's one of those moments that he is now just coming into and going, okay, trying to piece together what is going on, because last he knew everybody's alive and he's in the quantum realm.
Right, and he doesn't know how much time has passed, and for, just like on the surface, he's like, all right, it's been 5 hours. How much, like, for him, this is an obscene amount of stuff that can go wrong in 5 hours.
Right. So now he's obviously finally run into his daughter, who's now aged, and this is going to come back into play later, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then he finally makes his way to the Avengers complex, which Steve Rogers is kind of freaking out that he has seen Scott Lang because...
Well, yeah, because Scott Lang is presumed dead because in San Francisco, there's a memorial to everyone who's I think probably the United States, who's missing or dead. And he goes looking on the thing, looking for his daughter's name, and he ends up finding his name. So, ergo, everyone presumes he's dead, and when he shows up at the front door, and he's like, "Hey, guys, it's me. Remember, I'm the guy who can turn big and small. Remember me?" And Steve goes, "Is this live?"
Yeah, it's kind of one of those weird moments that sets in. So, at this point, Steve is saying, okay, maybe there's a shot. Maybe there's a way we can pull this off. And he's obviously trying to figure out, with Scott Lang's information and the quantum realm, of possibly we can do some time travel, maybe. And this is where they can't get Tony Stark to come back because Tony is, I mean, he's not that he doesn't want to, but he just doesn't think it's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, because they have an idea. It's kind of like a rough idea. They don't have anything firmly planned, and they haven't worked out the science of it yet, but they've got an idea.
I mean, and I don't blame Tony at all because he has a daughter now. He's married to Pepper, and it's like, he has moved on. Like, he, to a degree, like, he still blames himself over Peter, and that's eventually what brings him around. But it's like you can't fully blame him from like he is happy to see everyone. He says that, but it's just like he looks at his daughter and it's like, can I really risk this to make things worse?
Right, and that's the argument that he has to have with himself, because he knows that if he makes this worse, he loses more. And now he has a daughter, and like he has made that transition from being Tony Stark, millionaire playboy, to Tony Stark, family man. And this is almost like a full circle thing because he's knowing about the mistakes his father made with him, and now he's trying to avoid doing that with his daughter.
Yeah,
which is a nice little throwback to the original Iron Man.
Yes,
but they go, as Tony is dealing with this, the Avengers go looking for help from another scientist.
Yeah, they kind of hinted, oh, there's another brain out there.
Right, and as we see, the Hulk is not exactly the same as we saw him 5 years prior.
He's a little different.
Yeah, Banner and the Hulk have found like a balance. Banner is in the Hulk body, but it is his mind in charge of it. So he's doing pretty good. He's got a life. I don't really know what he's doing. It's not really explained, but because they find him at a diner eating like 800 pancakes
while signing autographs.
Yeah, he's living his best life. No question about that. But as they kind of did throw this to the comics a little bit, because he is known as Professor Hulk at this point. And during the Hulk's run, Banner has found a way to merge with the Hulk, but it's been like an alternate personality that Banner thinks he's in charge, but is actually like somebody else. It's a little more complicated, but he does have the best of both worlds. But there's ramifications from that the movie didn't touch upon, but if you go through the comic history, you'll find out about. But at this point, they start having Banner mess around with time travel, and Scott Lang is the guinea pig, so to speak. And it does not go exactly well for him the first go-around.
No, not really.
No, he winds up going through time, and he comes back a baby. He comes back
old. Comes back, what was it, about 10 years old.
Yeah, he comes back in all different types of ways, and is just basically Hulk's like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I'm doing.
And then Tony comes in and is like, all right, you don't know what you're doing. Just shut up. I know exactly what you're doing, Scott. Let's go do this.
I was waiting for Hulk to have a moment kind of like Han Solo does in The Empire Strikes Back, where Han's trying to fix the Millennium Falcon, and he just keeps going, it's not my fault.
Yeah, it was definitely a little throwback to that. And how they played it up was very well, but then Tony finally figures out the way. He comes back, he reunites with everybody, and he says, okay, we have one shot, but we have to do this where I don't lose everything.
He reunites while driving in on two wheels, let's be real.
Yeah, and that's exactly how he rolls in. But
basically, what Tony ends up saying is like, okay, we're not going to go back and fix what happened. We are just going to rectify it and bring everyone who vanished back here.
Right.
We're not going to try to stop Thanos again. That didn't work. And if we do that, that will end badly. So he's like, we're going to go and get the stones, return to this time, and we're going to undo it.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost kind of like a weird Ocean's 11 type,
Yeah,
heist.
yeah.
Like, it was just, I mean, essentially a time heist, which was kind of weird to see them try pulling off. Because, I mean, obviously, now, at this point, they were very much deferring away from the Infinity Gauntlet storyline.
Yeah.
And to see where they go with this was kind of interesting because it's almost like a flashback throughout the history of the MCU.
It's almost like a greatest hits.
Yeah. Because at this point, they round up everybody back. The Thorbowski is now in tow. I mean, he got kind of drugged back into it a little bit.
Oh, so the Thorbowski is drugged back in tow with the promise of booze.
Yes. So he's like, what beer you have on your ship? Okay. So he is now in tow, and they break up into teams to go back and go get the stones.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that Nebula and War Machine go back to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1.
Yep.
You see Thor and Rocket go back to Thor 2, The Dark World.
Yep.
You see Cap and Tony
and Ant-Man
go to the Battle of New York.
To salute America's ass.
Yes.
Yeah, because the issue they're running into is because Hank Pym has been dead, quote unquote, dead for so many years. There's a very limited supply of Pym particles for them to travel back in time, which is, they use the Pym particles to travel back in time. So they're almost, they know they got to be very precise, very quick, and very accurate with where they go, how they get there, and get it done. And then I think it was Black Widow comes up with the idea while they're running through, because they go to everybody who's had an encounter with the Infinity Stones at various points throughout the MCU. They talked to Thor about, from when he encountered it in Thor 2. They talked to Rocket when he encountered it in Guardians 1. And then Black Widow picks up on it and she goes, hey, wait a minute, guys. There was a point in history where there were 3 in New York at one time.
Right. So at that point, the plan is made. And at this time, too, Ronan, and Black Widow are going to get the Soul Stone.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of an interesting play. I really did, because I just go, okay, if somebody has to go here, we're sending the 2 most normal characters with no superpowers.
Yeah, and it was interesting to see because, okay, we're splitting off into teams, and you start to see the teams, and you've got, Nebula and War Machine, Ronan, and Black Widow on the Guardian ship together back in 2014, and Nebula and War Machine stay on the planet while Ronan and Black Widow go off on the ship to go get their stone. And then they get to the planet where the Soul Stone is, and that's when I think a lot of people, myself included, went, oh, crap.
Yeah, because at this point you see the Red Skull, who is the guardian of the Soul Stone.
Yes.
That's so weird saying. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He's not really even a guardian. He's more just, okay, I tell you the rules. You do what you want with them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't, he doesn't protect the stone because you have to make the sacrifice. He's more just like, all right, my price for trying to wield an Infinity Stone is to watch others get it. That's what he said in Infinity War. So it's like, I don't really know what he is. He's like the shepherd, more like.
It's almost like in Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade, where you get to the end and they're finally in that room looking to get...
Yeah, he's the knight who guards the grill. He's like, I'm not going to...
Yeah, like the knight who guards the grill really doesn't really have anything or input or say of the whole thing. He's just got to tell you what he has to tell you. It's all your own objective how you do it.
Right. At this point, I don't know. Like, I still think just something's real weird with that. Like, something is still not setting well with me.
Yeah.
But either way, you see Hawkeye, Ronan, and Black Widow arguing about who's going to make the sacrifice.
Well, and at this point, I'm wondering, what has Ronan got to sacrifice? He's already lost his family and went absolutely ape you-know-what over it.
I was kind of annoyed he tried sacrificing himself because, like, dude, you're trying to bring back your family, and they're going to come back, and you're now dead.
Well, you know what, though? He feels he's dead inside, so what does he have to lose?
Yeah.
And if he can bring back his family, who he loves more than anything, and go out that way, that's how he wants to go.
I can get behind that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way I took it. But with Black Widow, I was going, okay, if she's sacrificing herself, she's just doing it because she feels the guilt that Steve Rogers is carrying and Tony Stark and just being one of the Avengers watching it happen. And as they're fighting, going back and forth, ultimately Black Widow is the one who makes the sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my question I pose, and I'm going to go kind of a little off topic here a little bit. When Black Widow hit the ground, did she bleed red?
Yes.
Yeah.
She did.
Yeah.
She did.
Okay, because I couldn't really tell from where I was sitting.
Yeah.
Because my theory was, and I'm still going to kind of stick to one or two theories of what happens next with her. This version of Black Widow is dead, regardless of who it is.
Yeah.
My theory was that she is possibly a Skrull, And with Skrull psychology, maybe they believe that they're giving up something. And, obviously, like, her memories are the Black Widows and such. That, the sacrifice still works. And that maybe that was her at the end. Or are they going to go based off the more recent comics revelation that, and this is a spoiler for that there is a history of clones involving Natasha?
I don't. It's hard to say. All I know is I don't think it's was a Skrull that died, because they made a very deliberate point of showing her body laying there on the ground with the blood pooling out. I think if they were going to go the Skrulls route, you would have seen her body, but you wouldn't have seen any blood.
My thought is it's either going to be a clone or she comes back when Cap returns the Soul Stone. Because my theory is like, okay, you have to sacrifice a soul to get a soul. Well, I give this one back. Can I get one back?
Yeah.
It's an interesting play that I think they'll explain when the Black Widow movie comes out.
Time travel makes my head hurt.
Oh, it does. Because
this wasn't even really time travel. This was, hey, we're building the multiverse basically off of what we do here.
Right.
Essentially, yeah.
Because, like, you got to think, as much as they tried, they still screwed up, like, all the timelines.
Yeah,
so it's like they basically just created numerous alternate ones. Like, okay, when they go to get the, Asgard to get the ether, the reality stone, Thor has a moment with his mother and he gets all confident and he's like, okay, I'm taking my old hammer back with me. So literally they created a universe where that Thor doesn't have his hammer.
Right.
And then Loki gets away and it's like, okay, theirs is the same. Their universe is the same of what we've watched through all these throughout the years, but they created so many alternate ones that it's like, all right, is this going to be like some crisis where everything comes together? Or
well, it's very interesting you bring that up, because with the amount of time travel they're doing, that they have done some damage to the timeline. There's no question of this.
Well, and this is something that Tilda Swinton, the Ancient One, brings up when Tony Hulk, I think
Hulk is with him
Hulk
too.
goes with him too. Goes back to 2012 in the Battle of New York. Hulk goes off and goes to the secret sanctorium and talks with the Ancient One about getting the Time Stone. And because she's the Ancient One, she knows what has been, she knows what is, and she knows what will be. She kind of picks up on things, and she even, she does the whole thing. She did to Doctor Strange and knock him out of his body. And so the Hulk's lying there while, Bruce Banner's following her around and talk. And she kind of goes, listen, you can do this, and, that's all fine and dandy, but, like, you're going to screw with the timeline. And she does the whole thing with, like, the spectral whatever it is on the plane, where, like, this is our timeline, but the instant you do that, there's this other timeline branching off from that.
Right. And that's where I'm going with it's the multiverse.
Yeah.
It quite possibly could be, or where I think it's going to eventually lead is to this is how they bring in the Fantastic Four and X-Men to the MCU.
Only care about the X-Men.
Yeah, this is my prediction about that, is with the damage they're doing, because now they've jumped around in time, and obviously the Soul Stone is one thing. When they were in Thor: The Dark World, this is another scenario where, like, okay, they did some changes, but nothing really too detrimental, except they took Mjolnir away from that timeline.
Right.
But it also depends on when Cap brings it back.
Right.
Because this happens later in the film.
Right.
Oh, yeah, he does bring the hammer back. I forgot about
that. He when he does take off at the end, the hammer is sitting on the teleport device, whatever you want to call it. And so presumably when he went to return the Reality Stone, he did put that back at the same time.
Right. And then
he's got to be the jerk who re-gives Natalie Portman the ether back.
Oh, that can't be a fun conversation.
No, that can't be, but I mean, that's a little later in the film. But for this moment, too, though, when Team Cap is in New York, they wind up losing Loki.
Yeah.
With the Tesseract.
Yeah.
So everything goes sideways there because everybody else has gotten their gems.
Yep.
Except Tony and Cap.
Yep.
And so they have to go back further in time. Meanwhile, everybody else goes back, with the exception of War Machine and Nebula, because at this point, Nebula is connected cybernetically with the Nebula that's in that year of 2014.
Mm-hmm.
So thus, Thanos gets tipped off of what's going on.
Yeah, and like the plot twist I didn't see coming, and I kind of went, oh, crap.
Yeah, so now he figures out what's going on. He now taps into the present-day Nebula's memories. He finds out that he gets killed by Thor, and he goes...
Which it's funny. He's even content with watching himself die.
Yeah.
What he hates is when he sees they're trying to undo what he did, so he's like, I have to change my plan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, it's just weird. Like, you literally know it's like, all right, I'm going to succeed and watch and get killed. All right, I'm good. Wait, you're trying to undo what I did? No, I'm not okay with this.
Yeah, that this is his whole life's mission, to see it get undone he can't handle. So he finds a way to go back with or back into the present day.
Yeah, I was gonna say he goes forward.
Yeah,
goes forward. Yeah,
time
See,
travel.
that's another one. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's where it's like a multiverse where, okay, like another world where there is no Thanos.
right. Well, and that's
Because he's come to
that's the
ours.
thing I was kind of wondering. The days after I saw the movie was like, all right, the Thanos that they killed in Endgame was the Thanos from 2014. It was from the beginning of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. They killed him. Ergo, shouldn't everything that happened like from that point forward gotten fixed? But then I thought, well, because Steve returned the stones to where they should have been, it got rectified. We'll see.
Right, that's going to be the biggest question mark coming out of this. I mean, we'll get to that a little bit later in the show. But as we see, I mean, Cap and Tony have to go back further in time where the Tesseract is at an army base.
I think it's the army base where Steve trained and was turned into Captain America.
Yep,
in
and
Jersey.
Howard Stark was there too. So Tony has his long talk with his dad that he hasn't had before.
His long needed talk.
Yeah.
But more needed, it also is where there's a young Hank Pym developing the Pym particle so they can go back, get the Tesseract, and then get back to their reality.
Yup.
And by the way, how cool was it? The helmet.
Yeah.
Caught that.
Yeah,
The
little
old school Ant-Man helmet.
Yeah, I mean, they just did so many throwbacks to everything that's been built up in the Marvel Studios, MCU. We could just go on and on about that. But finally, once the Avengers all get back to the timeline, they finally go, they somewhat fix things, and then...
Well, so they build a quote-unquote Infinity Gauntlet out of one of the Iron Man armor hands, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking at this thing before it even happened. I'm like, there's no way this is going to work. Like, they had to build that in Gauntlet to specifically hold the stones and channel their power. There's no way you're telling me you can just take an Iron Man Gauntlet convert it into an Infinity Gauntlet just so it has some spots to hold the thing and it's going to work.
Well, the weird thing is in the comics, this has happened. See, that's the thing. that I was more kind of surprised at that everybody who's worn the gauntlet has wound up being damaged from it.
That's true.
Because you saw you saw the Hulk is the only one who can survive it because it's got all the gamma energy in it.
Right, but his arm is still messed up and it's in a sling.
Right, so he's definitely scarred from this moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
So to see this, how it's hurting everybody that puts it on is kind of that kind of threw me for a curveball.
Yeah,
because you can go through the lineage of Marvel Comics since the Infinity Gauntlet has came to be since the 90s. There has been multiple people who have worn it. Captain America, Iron Man, Black Panther, Adam Warlock, Silver Surfer. Well, I think Silver Surfer might have been a what if. But my point is, being with this, is nobody was physically scarred from wearing it. But now we're seeing this happen in the film, which, I don't know, they kind of threw me for a little curveball because we haven't really seen this. And we didn't even know about anybody being hurt by this until Thanos mentioned it, but it was him trying to destroy the stones.
Right.
He wasn't hurt when he was wearing it. We didn't see this happen when he finally put all the gems on.
And that's what I think builds into them, like Hulk and Tony just getting hurt by it, is because the gauntlet was meant to channel it that Thanos had so he could wear it and use their powers fine. It was when he tried blowing them up that he hurt himself. They don't have that extra protection, so just by wearing the gauntlet with all the Infinity Stones coursing through them, it takes its toll.
I'll say Thanos was definitely in some pain from, because I watched Infinity War, the day or a couple hours before we went to go see Endgame, and when Thanos finally gets the Soul Stone and puts it into that final slot on the gauntlet, and he the power channel, he's definitely like, okay, this isn't comfortable, but it's not as bad as Bruce and Tony got it when they went to use it.
Right, and at this point, Thanos is attacking Avengers Complex
with everything he has.
Right, because now he's come through time too. He's come through the quantum realm. And now at least I'm pretty sure it was quantum realm. He did.
Yeah, he did.
Yep, he came through, and now this time he's blowing up the complex. Everybody is in really bad shape.
They're like, wait, what hit us?
Because he's literally like, he tells his plan is, all right, I tried wiping out half. I see the only way to do this is to kill everyone and then make a new half.
Yeah.
Basically, like, become God.
So he's taking the Ultron route where, I'm going to be here for 5 seconds and I'm going to take you all out.
Right. And at this point, too, he starts sending Nebula and Gamora to go get the gauntlet from Ronan. And he's just sitting there. And at this point, Cap, Tony, and Thor are all saying, okay, he's all sitting there. We need to end this.
Yep.
And to one of the starts of the best fight scene I think I've seen in the MCU, possibly ever in superhero movies.
Yeah, no, it's the best in superhero movie history.
Do you see the 3 Trinity members of the Avengers going after Thanos?
Yeah, and they were doing pretty good.
They were doing good. They were all standing on their own, and then we finally had the first fanboy moment of the film.
I geeked out. Because
it's been teased since of Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
Once Thor had Mjolnir on the ground, he's taken out. Thanos is about ready to go impale him. who comes swinging the hammer but Captain America himself. How cool was that moment?
That was just so awesome because it is like you said, since Age of Ultron, when Thor he was like, oh yeah, if you could lift the hammer, you rule Asgard, and he gets this nervous look because no one's making the
wiggles.
thing, and he's wiggling it in the table. It's like Steve can almost lift it.
Yeah, no, it was one of those moments that like they made a deliberate point of teasing it was going to happen because he drops Mjolnir and it hits the ground, and there's a very deliberate shot of like they show it hitting the ground. It's not just him losing it in the battle and oh hey darn I lost Mjolnir. No, that's like he dropped it. Hey, by the way, it's on the ground now.
And then it cuts back to that shot of it on the ground, and you just see it get lifted. And the best part is because they stay true. It's like Captain America gets lightning because whoever wields this hammer, should he be worthy, shall have the power of Thor.
Yep.
Yeah, so you see Thor plus Super Soldier Serum equals ass-kicking machine because he starts just going crazy.
Say, remind me to never get on the wrong end of that combination.
Except the thing that's off, this terrifying thing is, it still isn't enough.
No.
Thanos gets pissed and he
breaks
knocks that hammer out of his hand and then cuts his shield apart.
Yeah, it was like it's like 3/4 cut in half or cut in half.
Yeah, he winds up just decimating the shield, and at this point, he's like, I'm done playing games, and he starts bringing in his army. And all is looking lost for our heroes.
Right, but they give a little tip-off before this happens where they fix everything, they snap everything, and they're like, wait, did it work? Did it work? And this is before Thanos attacks. And then Hawkeye's phone starts going off, and I can't remember if it was his wife or
his wife.
His wife starts calling, so that's kind of the tip-off of, hey, it worked. Everyone's back, and the entire time the battle's going on, I'm like, where's the run and everyone helping? Because they should know about this by now.
Yeah.
And then you get the tip-off, and then you get the help, and then the portals start opening, and then people start coming through.
You hear Falcon's voice.
Yep.
Come across.
On your left.
Yeah. And then
you see, and it's like you see him, you see Falcon, you see Black Panther, and then everyone just shows up.
I freaked the heck out.
Yeah, you see Spider-Man come through there too, and just all the heroes that were snapped start slowly coming through portals.
To this point, my favorite scene in cinema history has been when Rohan charges at the Battle of Gondor in Return of the King, where it's like that whole speech and the charge and death and the whole you can dig up the scene on YouTube. It's incredible. It gives me goosebumps to this day, and the movie came out in 2003.
I know, it's awesome.
It's an awesome scene. This one gave me goosebumps on goosebumps on goosebumps, where I was jumping up and down.
Oh yeah, in the theater we were at, everybody started cheering and everybody started yelling.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this was just one of those moments that just, as a moviegoer, these are the stuff you hear about.
If you are a fan of the music and you just kind of want to relive the scene in your head, you can dig up the Avengers Endgame soundtrack on whatever, wherever you get your music online, where you purchase it. It is track 28 titled Portals. Just giving that little tip.
Right. And at this point, now you're starting to see everybody get involved and everybody's...
And Cap finally says it.
Yep, and Cap finally just goes, Avengers, assemble.
Yes.
And then at this point, everybody's just losing it. Mm-hmm. And it is just such a cool moment. And you see now everybody's finally involved. Everybody's in the battle. Everybody's now just showcasing their powers. You're seeing everybody team up.
Yeah.
And then you start seeing, just when the battle seems that maybe the team is starting to lose a little bit.
Right, yeah.
We'll say Team Marvel.
Things are teetering.
All of a sudden, Captain Marvel comes in, making the save.
Well, because his capital ship, his spaceship, comes down into low orbit and over the ground, and it's like, oh crap! Here he's going to unleash everything, and in comes Carol.
Right at this point, Carol Danvers comes in, saving the day. And at this point, too, you start seeing the female heroes of Marvel
that was cool.
Grouped together.
That was awesome.
Which was a play to A-Force,
okay.
Which was a comic series that Marvel did with the female heroes of the Avengers.
That was a cool scene because I forget who it was. There was somebody in that scene where they're like, oh, she's fighting alone.
Yeah.
And then somebody was like, I think it was Okoye, was like, she's not. And then you just saw every female superhero line up against her and charge.
Yeah, I mean, that was just such a cool moment, too. We can't even stress that enough. And just to see the little shout to A-Force, I was digging. I was like, oh, this maybe be something that happens down the road in the MCU?
Maybe.
Possibly.
Disney Plus, maybe. You never know.
Yeah, obviously, Disney Plus is making a lot of moves, so I don't doubt something like that happening. Maybe as a film, too. I mean, I'd take my money now. And as you see, our heroes are starting to get the upper hand. And you see Doctor Strange kind of give a nod to Tony about this is the one scenario he saw them winning.
Yeah, Tony goes up to him and he goes, "Is this the one scenario you saw where us winning?" And I can't remember if it's right after, it's maybe a minute or so after, when things are looking kind of their bleakest or their most grim. Doctor Strange looks at him and just holds up one finger.
No, it's a little bit after, because he does. What makes it more impactful is he says, "If I tell you, it's not going to happen."
It's not going to happen.
So it's like he literally, Thanos is about to get all the stones again. Tony sees he's the only one who can stop him.
Yep.
And he looks to Strange with this look, and Strange just holds up the
one finger, like, "Hey, this is it."
And at this moment, Tony knows what he has to do, and
he charges Thanos after Danvers failed. He grabs Thanos' hand. Thanos thinks he's still won, and he's like, "I am inevitable." Snaps his fingers. Nothing happens. Tony used his nanotech to take the stones off of the gauntlet. Looks Thanos in the eyes. He starts to get the scars burning and just says, "And I am Iron Man." Snaps his fingers, and Thanos is gone.
And I got to give a shout out to, I can't remember who it was. There was somebody on the Marvel Studios subreddit who pointed this out in the couple of days after the movie came out. But there were two awesome callbacks to the Avengers in this one. And it was specifically a argument that Tony and Cap had with each other, where Tony said that Cap, everything special about Cap came from a bottle. And he's special enough to wield Mjolnir and wield the powers of Thor. And Cap said Tony's not the one to make a sacrifice play. What did Tony do in this moment? Made the sacrifice play.
Yeah.
And then, you just see everyone's relieved because they see Thanos' army turn to dust.
Yeah.
And then everyone just turns and they see Tony slumped on the ground as he's burnt up like Thanos was, except he's not Thanos who can just survive that.
Right.
Peter comes over, and so does Rhodey, and they're both trying to console him. And then finally his Pepper comes over, and he's looking at her all sad, and she's just like, "You did good, you can go."
And
that was the moment where you're just all right.
And it was already heartbreaking enough because you got that going on, but not even 20 minutes prior, Tony and Peter reunited, and everything Tony had been feeling about losing Peter, and he finally, Peter comes up to him, and he's talking a mile a minute, teenagers do, and he comes up to him, "Oh, we were this, and Tony just hugs him, and it's it's like relief for us, the fans. They're like, "Okay, he's back, everything's okay." 20 minutes later, it's not okay.
Right. This is one of those moments where Tony had his, coming of age moment, so to speak, that he has now transcended from where he started being the first Avenger, so to speak, in the MCU, to now he's making the ultimate sacrifice. He's finally, fulfilled everything he wanted to be, that he wasn't before. From going to millionaire playboy to now a father to his own child, and almost like a surrogate one to Peter Parker too.
Yeah.
And that he has now made the ultimate sacrifice. And Pepper, who's there in her rescue armor, is just saying, "It's okay, Tony," and just kind of console him because she knows he's not going to survive this.
And she knows also if she doesn't say it, he's going to beat himself up in the grave that he died.
Yeah.
And that's where she's just like, "You can go."
And at this moment, we see that they fast forward a little bit, and we're at Tony's funeral.
Yep, which it's at the cottage he was living at during the failed attack on Thanos.
Right.
Which I gotta say, that was a nice place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was legit damn.
Well, it's Tony Stark. I mean, he's definitely living his best life there,
right, but
too.
at the same time, for a man who lived in mansions and fancy places and villas overlooking the ocean, it's kind of a minimalist lifestyle for him.
But you know what? Being lost in space, you kind of appreciate the smaller things.
Yeah, that's true. You do kind of reassess things.
And then at his funeral, it's they pan over, you see proof that Tony Stark has a heart on the thing going out on the river, on the pond there. And then they do such a great job at helping to wrap up the MCU. It shows all of the Avengers from and it does it in a way, it shows Pepper, and then it pans everyone in the order that they came.
And it pans with it, leaving enough time on all the characters who are there to kind of give you a moment of all right, we realize there's been 11 years and 22 movies. It might take you a minute to realize who some of these characters are, but everyone is there. And
especially one that stood out was Harley Keener.
Yeah, that one threw me because I'm like, wait, why is this kid here? Who is he? And then I saw
I thought it was Quicksilver, X-Men Apocalypse Quicksilver. I was like, why are you and no, not that
right,
sort of thing.
Right.
It was why are you
here?
I
saw this kid and I was like, all right, everyone here is there for a reason. Maria Hill's there, Robert Redford's character's there, all these characters are there, and it's wait, why are they? Who's this kid?
And the kid is from Iron Man 3, in case people have forgotten.
It's hard to recognize the kid because it's been many years since that movie.
Right. And I have a theory why he was there, but I'm going to get into a little later.
Okay.
because I know we got to get pressed for time here. But as we start seeing everybody's getting the final send-off, and you see Happy Hogan having a talk with Tony's daughter Morgan about cheeseburgers, which that hit you right in the feels. And just obviously, life without Tony and moving forward with the MCU is going to be very interesting.
It's going to be rough.
And then as you see Cap is now taking upon himself to put all the time stones back. Mm-hmm. And he kind of says his farewells to Falcon and Bucky. And Bucky kind of knows what's going on, too.
Yeah, Bucky's been around the block enough. He knows what's happening.
Yeah. So when they send him back in time, Cap doesn't come back right away.
No, and I thought, I said this when we were watching the movie. I thought he was going to 1945 to get that last dance.
Yeah. And then sure enough, we find out that we see Cap aged with his shield.
Well, so he doesn't show up because it's supposed to, he'll be gone for however long his time, but for us it
was supposed to be like 5 seconds.
Yeah, 5-10 seconds, and then he doesn't come back. Bruce is panicking. They're all panicking. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? And then Bucky picks up. He goes, Falcon. And he points, and you see a figure sitting on a bench.
And it's an aged Steve Rogers.
Old man Cap.
Yep, who's decided to go take Tony's advice and live the life that he's been waiting on.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's like that was a great end for his character because, like, Cap's always put others before him, and so it makes him so good. And finally, he's just like, I'm doing something for myself.
Yeah.
I saved all my friends. It's like, now it's time I get to live the life I want.
Yeah, because at this point, he takes back all the gems. He takes back Mjolnir. And he's now done everything he can. But he's sitting there with the shield, which he hands off to Sam Wilson, passing the mantle of Captain America to him.
Falcon Cap.
Which, it's funny, in Winter Soldier, they even hint at Peggy does end up with him in a way. There's a line when he's watching her in an interview in the Smithsonian. She's like, the man who would be my husband is like, he was there that day at the camps. And it's like, it's Steve going back in time, and she's with him.
Doesn't Steve ask her a question about the ring and the husband, and she kind of plays it off like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, because at this point, Steve cannot really do anything to alter time.
No,
but he does, because him going back and staying that long has now altered the timeline. Mm-hmm. So this is going back to my theory of he has now reset the timeline.
How does it reset it, though, if he doesn't interfere with any of the movie events?
Well,
that's what I'm thinking he does.
But that's the whole point, because he has to go back and just be very stealth in interfering, but he's also back just hidden in time. So I'm thinking when he's with Peggy, though, because she has to go set up S.H.I.E.L.D. as how it starts the MCU. I think he resets the entire timeline.
See, I'm not entirely sure he does, because I don't think he goes back to 45. I think he shows up in like whatever time it is. Right.
That's what I thought. He goes.
Yeah, because they played it off enough, and people have been trying to find an angle on that where he resets everything, and nobody can find a way. Because like everything that would hinted at her life after he disappeared and before he reappeared, she's very vague about. Almost to the point where like Steve probably, when he went back, she's like, "Wait, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be dead." He tells her what happens. He goes, "Listen, you can't give any indication of what happens, and I can't give any indication that I'm alive."
Then how does he get the shield then?
Holds on to it.
Doesn't he take it with him?
But the shield is broken, correct? See, this is always great for the argument of how he resets the timeline.
It's time travel bullshit.
Yeah, it's just more time travel because.
Which I hope that's not the case.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Exactly, because there's so many events going on, and like I said, where I thought we saw Harley too, because at the end of the movie you hear the iron pounding. My unofficial ODPH theory is he is setting up to become Iron Lad, and they're going to do a version of Young Avengers.
I mean, I've heard that. I've also heard it's just a callback to Iron Man 1.
That's what I thought it was. It was just a callback to like it all started in a cave.
It all started in a cave. It's the first thing you heard. It's the last thing you heard with this overarching saga.
I'm just saying, just my unofficial ODPH guess is he's building his own armor, because I know Tony did give him some tech in Iron Man 3, correct?
Something like that, yeah.
He did something. So to say he's now aged, Stature is now aged, Scott Lang's daughter. We're going to see Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye series that's coming to Disney+. I think they're setting up for the next wave of the MCU.
Could be.
Without question. So final thoughts. I know we went extra long about this, but the movie definitely deserved the attention. On the movie, starting with Bry Guy.
It's perfect. I can't say anything else without like rambling on again about what we already said. It's the best way to end the first 11 years.
It's a perfect culmination of the 22 films. Even if you haven't seen every movie, but you're still familiar with what's going on, you really have to see this movie and just kind of, it's closure, and it ties off everything in a bow. I saw somebody somewhere, not a T was left uncrossed and a I was not left undotted. It's a great end cap to the Infinity Saga.
The Russos created the perfect love letter to the fans of the MCU. It is about as perfect as you're going to get for a superhero film. Just about. Like I said, there's little stuff we can nitpick, and for where this saga closes, we can just simply say thank you to everybody involved with the Avengers franchise, with the Marvel Studios, because you have crafted a masterpiece of a universe that other superhero universes have tried copying, and it just hasn't worked, but it's been the Marvel way since they came out with Iron Man. And just to see the story of where these characters have grown and evolved, it's going to be really interesting to see where it goes, because now with Disney Plus coming into play and Hulu coming into play, and where the next direction of the MCU characters is, it's just going to be something that makes fans want to say, make mine Marvel. Hit us up on that hashtag, though. Hashtag ODPH. We gave you our thoughts on Avengers Endgame, but we want to hear yours. Hit us up. Let us know. We're taking a quick break, and we'll be right back. The ODPH is proud sponsors of RoberCon 2019, happening September 28th and 29th. Don't miss out on Binghamton, New York's biggest sci-fi, fantasy, and gaming convention of the year. For badge details and more info, check out RoberCon.org. Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. And yes, folks, you did hear the sounder. The ODPH is a proud sponsor of RoberCon this year. Mm-hmm. So September 28th, September 29th, make plans to get down to Binghamton's biggest sci-fi, fantasy, and gaming convention of the year.
Yes.
We have the link on our webpage. We are super excited to be a part of this year. RoberCon.org for more information. You're going to hear us talking about that a lot coming up in the next couple weeks. So definitely stay tuned for that and get your badges early, because they are going to fly, folks. No doubt about that. So let's kick into those one-shots, shall we, Pat?
Yes. As I mentioned last week, the video game Days Gone came out this past weekend. I've been playing a little bit of it. It is, despite what the critics say, because I know the reviews have been getting some negative press and whatnot, I've been enjoying the game. The game is, of course, set post-apocalyptic in the northwestern part of the United States, specifically Oregon, and there's a zombie outbreak. I haven't hit a point where I understand quite fully why the zombie outbreak is going on or what caused it. I'm starting to get a little tease of it, but it is one of the first times I've played a post-apocalyptic game where resources truly feel scarce, where if you run out of bullets, it's not just, oh, hey, there's bullets conveniently lying here. No, it's like, no, you got to pull out your melee weapon and really start taking out these zombies. You know, there are hordes. It's just a ton of fun. If you have a PlayStation 4, I cannot recommend it enough.
Definitely check that out if you're in the video games, because that game has got a lot of controversy going with it, but if Pat gives his approval, you know it's a good one. Bry Guy, what you got?
Not much, other than the fact that, as you guys know, May 4th is going to be the first Saturday of May, which means it is free comic book day, so make sure to get down to your local comic book stores and check out the goods. Absolutely. There's a lot of good issues coming out. There's an Avengers one, Deadly Class, which you know we like talking about here on the ODPH. Isn't that right, Bri? Oh, yeah.
And
Acid King!
Which, by the way, renew Deadly Class. Hashtag Deadly Class Season 2 needs to be happening. Sci-Fi, where are you at? But there's so many good books coming down, and especially if you want to get somebody into comic books. There's something for everybody there. Definitely go hit your comic book shops up. If you need a place to go find it, comicshoplocator.com. You can go there, type in your zip code, and they will definitely tell you where to go for that. So either way, get down there on your Saturdays, support your local comic shops. They have got tons of stuff going on. We can't say enough things, and it's free comics. Free, like, what else do I need to say? Free comics.
Pretty much. It's like, and
it's free stuff.
And like you said, it's a good point to get people into comics, because a lot of times these are like, okay, preludes to upcoming new series, like fresh ones. So it's really good to like get that, and then you pay attention for when the new series starts. Absolutely. There's so many good reasons to get into it, and especially if you loved Avengers, you would know the story that how it was going to go and see how it goes, and you'd have enough to be talking about on a podcast. This is how we all got started doing this. Pretty much. So definitely check that out. I'm going to end the show talking about one of my favorite shows, and unfortunately we're on the final season of it. Izombie comes back to the CW for its final run. Rose McIver has done just an awesome job as the lead character based off the DC Vertigo series of the 90s. And just to see where it's kind of deferred and like just kind of evolved into its own different zombie story, which, I mean, it's definitely not Walking Dead. It's very smartly written. It's a fun show. And where it's begun to now where it's going to end is going to be something truly to watch. I love the show. I can speak very highly of it. It's just a fun show to watch. Thursday, it comes back on the CW, so check your local listings where you're listening from.
That's all we got for this week. So for Bry Guy Signal,
later all.
For Padawan J,
thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, #ODPH podcast. We'll see you next time.